right, good evening. The time being 7 p.m. and a quorum of the planning board being present, I call this meeting to order. First item on the agenda, approval of minutes, December 16th, 2024.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the meeting minutes for December 16th, 2024.
All right, I have a motion made. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion made and second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries unanimous. Moving on to agenda item B, committee reports, administrative actions. Any committee reports any of the members wish to make at this time?
Nothing for me, Mr. Chairman.
Seeing none, we'll move on to agenda item B2, town planners report. Ms. Lutter?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On the horizon, currently, there are no new public hearings scheduled for the January 27th meeting. The board may vote at the end of this meeting to either cancel that meeting if there are no continued items or no outstanding items to discuss, or set an agenda for that meeting. Next item, a reminder that the last winter market will be held at the Senior Center on Thursday, February 13th from 4 to 7 p.m. Visit tewksburymarket.com for more details on that. Next item, an update on the ADUs by right. So the state held a public hearing regarding the proposed regulations related to the introduction of ADUs into Mass General Law, Chapter 40A, on Friday, January 10th. I submitted clarifying questions via written public comment process, as well as submitting oral testimony during the public hearing. The primary theme for my questions were surrounding nonconforming structures and uses, ownership and utilities billing, and clarity for which primary uses would be eligible for ADUs. So single-family homes, two-family homes, just getting clarification on that item. And last but not least, and I don't expect this to be a full-blown discussion, this is just some information for those folks who may not know, but on Wednesday, January 8th, the Supreme Judicial Court of Massachusetts issued a ruling in the Milton case related to the implementation of the MBTA Communities Law and subsequent guidelines. Some of the primary takeaways from that ruling, which I included in your meeting materials in its entirety, are the constitutionality of the act itself, the Attorney General's enforcement authority, and the invalidation of non-compliant guidelines, and I will expound on that last one. The guidelines themselves were found to be in order, however, they were not promulgated correctly, so the state will be working towards having a public hearing and going through the steps that they're supposed to go through to properly issue those regulations. The Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities intends to issue emergency regulations, which we have not seen yet, but that should help inform a timeline and a path going forward for those communities who have not yet adopted the compliant zoning. Once those emergency regulations come down, town staff will be working with town council to advise the boards on what the path forward may look like, depending on what action we choose to take. That's all I got for now.
Good. Any comments?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Lauder, I just wanted to ask on the ADUs, were they going to get back to you with some answers on these, or?
So this Friday was the final day of collection of public comment from anyone who wanted to submit testimony. There was a form on the website to submit written comments, but I also attended the public hearing at HLC's offices on Friday, and they are supposed to be taking all of that into account and reissuing the final regulations sometime prior to the implementation of the law, which would be takes effect on Sunday, February 2nd, 2025. But we're hoping that at least the regulations are finalized by January 31st.
There's a lot of detail, a lot of
Yeah,
questions.
we don't expect a lot of, we being, other communities that I've spoken to and attorneys that I've spoken to in the process, don't expect a lot of changes to the regulations, but a little more clarification on the language that's already there.
Thank you.
All set?
All set, Mr. Chairman.
All right, moving on to agenda item B3, 821 Main Street, approval not required plan. Do we have anybody here for 821?
No.
No. All right.
And just to provide context for folks in the audience, if you're just dying to know, at the last meeting, the board approved a special permit to allow the minimum reduction in lot size for 3 residential lots along Main Street, and this A&R plan is just a solidification of that plan to make sure that lots are properly created and recorded.
Okay, we'll start with Mr. Duffy.
I have no questions on 821. Thank you.
Mr. Champa?
Nothing for me, Mr.
Mr.
Chairman.
Lazardi?
No questions.
The chair has no questions either. Do we have a motion on the approval not required plan?
Is it a motion
Motion
to endorse.
Motion to endorse, I'd like to make a motion to endorse the approval not required plan for 821 Main Street.
I have a motion made. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion made and second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries unanimous. All right, before I start the regular hearings, I'll just let everybody know, as you can tell, we're one member short this evening, so any petitioners tonight have the option of continuing their hearing if they so wish, if it gets to the point where a vote would be taken, because there's only 4 of us, in which case, if you need an approval that requires a supermajority, you need 4 out of 4 of those present tonight. Otherwise, you could wait for a future hearing in which hopefully we'd have all our members, but that is up to you. You have been given the option. Moving on to Agenda Item C, 485 Main Street. The applicant has requested to be continued till our 2/10/25 meeting. I have a motion to make that continuance, please.
So moved.
A motion made. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion made and second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries. And that's that'll be 7 PM, right?
Yes.
7 PM. Okay. Moving on to Agenda Item D, 1628 and 1636 Shawshene Street. This is continued from our 12/16 meeting. Once everybody gets settled, if you give your names to the record, the floor is yours.
Good evening, everyone. Carrie Armstrong with Johnson & Borenstein in Andover. We represent the applicant.
I'm Robert Zwicker, and I am the applicant.
Andy Pajasic from Dana F. Perkins, engineer for the project.
All right, floor is yours.
Thank you. So we are continued from last month. In the meantime, there have been responses that were sent back in response to some of the comments that came out of the peer review report. Some additional correspondence back and forth to address some of the comments that were located in there. What I'd like to do is go over, I have a few topics that I think are still things that may warrant some discussion, and then we'll go through an overview of several of the topics that I believe are going to be addressed through revised plans and revised documents. First, there was a comment in the memo from Ms. Louder as far as clarification for the applicant's operations at this site. We did put together a short narrative that was sent in. I didn't know if that was enough for everyone to have a full understanding, or if there are any other questions we can answer as to the actual operation at the site.
Does anybody have any operational questions?
Just one. Your letter referenced that you are going to try to grow the in-person pickup business. So how is that compatible with a lot of your design, which is that you don't have or have a very minimal pickup business? So right now, I think you said it's kind of like 90-10 as far as delivery service versus in-person pickup.
Yep.
If you were to grow the pickup side of things, how would, what percentage do you think you would grow that?
So it's just a matter of being in a better location than where we are now, where we assume we'll have a little more drive-by traffic. It's still a limited amount of people that can come in, because we do require that they have a pickup truck or an open bed trailer in order to pick up. So I just wanted to be clear that we're not, we would like to create a little more revenue from being there. So delivery is really our bread and butter and what the business is all about. With what we do, our whole online service is built about it, and everything I build the business around is that aspect of it. So I just wanted to be upfront that, we would be happy to see a little more revenue come in with our location, for the neighborhood.
A number of the waivers that you're going to be requesting tonight are based on the fact that this is primarily a delivery-based company. So my concern is you're asking for waivers on the one hand because you don't expect a lot of in-person traffic, but then you say you want to try and grow and are hoping that the site brings in a lot more in-person traffic. So
Yeah.
I guess that just, I'm not sure, and I'm sure we'll discuss later, whether waivers can be conditional that later, if for some reason the waivers granted become problematic because of a shift in the business we may have to ask you to come back and revisit those conditions.
Sure, I would, to some degree, expect that if the business blossoms, that, we
Kind of a
make.
good problem to have, I would think.
Exactly, that, right, we address that accordingly, but even still, like, the people that do come in our current location when they pick up, it's a very simple process. It's not like they're walking around the property. A lot of times they'll pull in and the guy in the loader would just pull up to them, what do you need? It's a very simple process. But I do understand your concerns.
All right. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman. Ms.
Anyone
Lauer, looked like she wanted to.
There's an easy commentary to that, but I'll allow, let everybody else make their comments first.
Okay, you can go. Well, no, you can continue. We'll get to it when we,
Same
I just
topic?
wanted
Okay.
to do that because it was a separate question, and I figured if anybody wanted to ask anything, you could just get it out of the way.
Okay, sure. So the next point that we would like to discuss is the adjacent area that is town-owned land. There was a question, some discussion last time about parking for that. The applicant is not intending at this time to need or use any of that parking. And if that were to change in the future for whatever reason, would at that point be looking to communicate with the town as far as what an easement or something like that might look like. Our parking calculations did not factor in any of that parking. Everything is within the site. So there's a clarification on that point. The next one is on the two comments on Ms. Lauder's memo having to do with the striped walking pathways. We would be asking for a waiver for strict compliance with that as well, the striped pedestrian walkways within the site. Again, the nature of this business and the nature of the operations is not going to be one where we're going to have a lot of public traffic physically walking around the site. And the existing ADA walkways there, my understanding is that does have compliant access. Is that correct?
It would be across the existing parking lot out to the sidewalk from the proposed ADA parking space. It complies with ADA grading and slopes. So this would be just painting a crosswalk on the existing parking lot. This isn't a site that is going to generate a lot of foot traffic. So we've asked for a waiver from that, even though, it does meet, if for some reason someone wanted to walk in, it certainly would meet the standards.
And I, just one comment on that, I don't know what difference it makes, but if a striped walkway was to be painted, it would run along the property that has the house on it, and it would just run along the edge of the parking area to the parking spaces, especially the ADA parking space, so it wouldn't be painted across the middle. There would be no walking across the middle of the parking lot if people were to walk on the property.
Our next topic is on proposed condition number 2 that has to deal with the accessory buildings that are currently on the lot with the house. There are several small outbuildings. There's one that is constructed of concrete that is in pretty good condition that we would actually request to be able to keep. It would be useful to the business there, so we would ask that to the extent that condition were to be included, that one building would be excluded from the demolition condition.
That it?
That's it for topics outside of things that are going to be
Okay.
expected to be revised on the plan. So we could either go through each comment in the memo, or we could discuss questions that the board has at this point. And
I'll open it up to
as
the...
they come.
Yeah, I'll open it up to the board. We'll start with Mr. Lazardi.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, so I guess just kind of starting from that last one that you just mentioned, so the concrete's in good condition, it's not like broken up and...
It's actually a full foundation of a
Okay.
concrete building. So it may end up going. It just would be a shame if it had use, because it's solid construction.
Yeah, I mean, I think if it's in good condition, I don't have an issue with it. If it was cracked and all smashed up, there'd be a different potential story there. So kind of speaking about the parking spaces and which ones are actually on the parcel versus on town land here, is it just the ones kind of in front of the garage?
It's a pie, it's the left corner triangle of the property being longer along the street and then narrowing down as it goes to the property.
Okay, so it looks like kind of like the only, if you're not intending on using that, it looks like you have 6 spots kind of right along the
6
front.
spots in front of the garage, and then we'll be painting spots at the house in the driveway
Okay, so there'll be some additional spots over there.
and the garage.
So a lot of like the main employees that are year-round, they'll park in those, like the driveway of the house and like the premium parking spots. So like, there won't be much out in that front area anyways.
All right, so potentially that front area would be mostly for customer
And
traffic.
during the busy peak season, when we have extra drivers on, part-time drivers on, if we need it. But again, there's parking out back for them as well. And then on-site parking if people stop by.
All right. And then is the reserved parking that you have denoted here, is that for employee use? Is it for scheduled pickups?
What are you looking at?
I don't know if it's on that one. It's on the proposed site plan sheet Jill sent us.
Was that from the original already existing on the property? Reserve parking? If I remember correctly? Or they had a couple spots there that was like reserve parking? That might have
Do
been.
we have anything marked?
Yeah, I think it might have been drawn up from the original.
Okay.
What was
Oh,
pre-existing.
From.
So that's what it is.
Those, everything out there, even out front, I mean, everything's long faded away, so.
Yeah,
We will be restriping the new spaces.
Okay, all right, that was going to be my next question, because when I look on the Google satellite photo, you can't see a single line.
Kick it around and kind of see it, but yeah, it's.
All right.
It'll be new stripes.
And so just to kind of confirm from the last time you heard, the dividers they're movable, right? So they're not fixed?
So I'm sorry to jump in, but the wall that will run along the wetlands, that the perimeter,
Yep.
that will protect the level layer, that will never move.
Okay, so that
And
one's
then, and
fixed.
then inside of that, if we want to widen a bin or, seasonal, we'll have that flexibility.
Okay. And then from a delivery perspective, is it just dump trucks that come in and they kind of drop them off in the bin?
Yeah, so generally it's live floors and they just back in, they're not even going up, they just shake the material out right in the bin and then they head out.
I think with that, that's all my questions.
All right, Mr. Champa?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So the walkway area that we're talking about from the sidewalk to the site, I didn't see anything on the plans, but, one of the things I think we talked about last time is, we like to think of all the different people that might be coming to the site, whether they be employees or customers. And so while you said that the people driving to the site to visit wouldn't need that pedestrian access, but what if somebody was walking to work because they live nearby?
Mm-hmm.
Would that pedestrian access from the sidewalk into the office building be beneficial for them?
They could obviously access from the front of the property. They would be the customer entrance if they wanted to come in from the side where they park, but the employees would have access to walk in the front door.
Okay. And then, let's see here. Sorry, I went back to your previous meeting packet for a second. Let me come back to the present. I have no problem with the issue of some of the parking being on concrete versus the pavement. That seems fine. And it's not clear here. Do we have clarification? Are we good on the dumpster location?
There was a dumpster detail added, but there were some follow-up questions that we can certainly work out later. That's more of a health department regulation that all dumpsters have to be permitted, so just noting that wherever the dumpster exists, just has to be fenced in. That's really just trying to get ahead of any eventual dumpster permitting, so nothing fatal.
So we show, just to clarify, we do show a dumpster location. The note calling it out just got copied twice, so there's just a.
Okay,
it's
so we have
essentially
we have a desired dumpster location.
We do, we just
Okay.
have an extra note that's floating in the middle of nowhere.
All right. And then you're okay with the conditions on converting the residence to an office? You know, the kitchen has to come out, things like that, and it can't be used as a, you know, for any type of residential use?
I'm okay with that. And that will be a building department, is when we'll really get down to the nooks and cranny of what we can keep, because it's nice to have for the employees and what, like a stove doesn't belong there, type stuff. Okay.
Okay, and you don't want to provide continuous curbing, but we have the wall kind of protects the conservation areas and wetlands from the site anyway. So I don't think we need the curbing. I think we're okay with that, or I'm okay with that, I should say. So yeah, I don't have anything else here that I have any questions about. I'm all set, Mr. Chairman.
All right, Mr. Duffy?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A couple of quick questions. So on one of the tech comments, they were talking about specifying a milling depth for the asphalt. Were you guys able to address that? Like,
Yeah, so it's, you know, the more the better, but it's going to vary across the site. The area closest to the wetlands, you know, that's going to remain closest to the existing grade, and will generally slope up, you know, south to north, left to right on the plan. So, you know, as we get further into the site away from the wetlands, it will be thicker. But we're planning to add a note to the plans for a 2-inch minimum at the very least. But I think typically it's probably going to be like 8 or 10.
I'm thinking about 8 inches would be the,
You know, as we get in further away from the wetlands where the grade allows us to have that room.
so will you be providing some sort of like an as-built or something along the way with the paving that shows that? Because who actually, you know, checks to see how thick the pavement is? If it's a recommendation, you know, and you know, not so much like a building code thing.
So we'll be bringing in, you know, a good structural material that will allow for some drainage in it that we'll use as our subgrade. And then, because that I have access to for free, besides trucking it. The millings is a small expense, so we're certainly not looking to just overload it with millings. We want to use the millings that we need to have a good base to drive on, allow for the tires to turn without getting right down to that subgrade. So there's really no reason to overdo that. So I think we talked about 2 inches to 1 foot being the range that it would be within, and we expect it to be about 8 inches, 6 to 8 inches, but generally 8 inches.
Certainly in your traffic areas where your vehicles are going to be. I can see how it may taper off as you get out towards the, you know, towards the perimeter and so forth. But the problem here is that I'm having is that there's nobody that I know of who's actually going to verify that.
So I do understand that, but when we come in and we start doing the work, and I don't know if I said it to you guys or conservation, but I come from site work. So we will be out there doing the grading, we'll have our lasers set up, so we'll walk around and we'll have our benchmark. And again, the free material would be the filling, the fill, so we'll walk around and we'll get that to a consistent level. The areas that would be a little thinner would be where we're worried about, you know, not needing to dig up the existing site and things like that, which are, like he said, more on the outskirts.
It's also not something we typically provide on as-built for
I know,
any
you know what
project.
I mean, that's why.
You know, for like pavement or something and pavement depths. I know, you know, sometimes town engineering will conduct site visits, but I mean, that's not
I guess, Ms.
something
Lauder,
we
do you have
typically
any
measure.
thoughts on why Tech may have made that recommendation?
Well, to know how much fill's coming into the site to start, just because we know it is a sensitive site. And we have had on other projects, have a part of an as-built submittal. So your as-built submittal would reflect any buildings that have been taken down in accordance with the conditions, and we have had them include some spot grades, just to kind of give an idea of where it is across the site. And that would, in this case, considering there's going to be minimal site work and improvements to the site, I think this would be something that we'd see, in addition to the new striping that they do and any of the other, modest improvements. But I think that if the applicant and his team are agreeable, I think having some spot grades on the as-built, just to kind of demonstrate where all the, where the fill is kind of
Yeah.
spread out would make sense.
Sure, absolutely.
Okay, and that's great, but that doesn't specifically talk about minimum asphalt thickness. So I'm going to let that one go for now. Maybe that's something that we can discuss down the road there a little bit, to see if it's, something that we need to address. So you're not submitting a sign application, master sign plan?
That is correct. I mean,
Something that you plan on doing at a later date? or-
yeah, I mean, as soon as we get the ball rolling, where we can move forward, I will do that. I've read the bylaws, and I know that's just going to be a sign on the face of the building with the company name. I think it's 3x5 is the bylaws that it can be. And then,
Depends on how far we go from the street.
okay, so very, very simple, nothing over the top. So we just thought that would be something to cross the bridge when we got through this process.
We like coming back to you again.
Yes.
I'm sorry?
We like coming back.
Another quick question. Are you in the process of preparing the RAM plan that gets submitted to DEP?
Yes, I have spoken to Common Sense about that.
Yeah.
And
So are they going to do that for you or on your behalf?
so they would do it. We'd just have to figure it. So it's probably going to be a letter that will state, basically following the guidelines of the AUL, which they reference 20 yards of material, and if it's more than that, and we're not quite sure we're going to generate that with the minimum amount of site work we need to put in the level layer, and the rest of it's filling, but we will have a RAM in place to document all of that.
Okay.
Just one thing on that, this is also it's the same company that prepared the AUL, so they're very familiar with the site.
Understood. Because, I know last meeting we talked about, the possibility that you may be trenching for, a sewer connection or whatever. Any?
That would be a different project down the road, because as I stated, we have the house, which is already up and functioning, so
Yeah.
there is no thoughts about that.
Okay. That may be all I have. I think I'm all set, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
All right, thank you. So that only leaves two other comments from TEC, their comment 13 and their comment 37. The straw wattle, and the other one is just about the annual reports. That shouldn't be a problem. We're going to tell you that you have to submit an annual report, so.
As far as the straw wattle, we'll revise the detail to show the wattle's up gradient of the silt fence, as is typical. And what was the other one? What number?
The other one was regarding the, it was a suggestion to us to add additional language to the permit regarding where is this? The long-term pollution prevention plan that they have yearly submittals to the town.
Yeah, so that, I believe, we've already prepared the LTPPP in the O&M. And there's language in there that yearly reports need to be generated. I think that's just adding a little extra text to say, that they also have to be submitted to town planning.
Yes.
So that's something, we're okay with that condition. We'll add that to language in there. We'll also have to provide a signed copy to the town. The applicant isn't the current owner right now, so we figured that would make sense to condition. Prior to construction, a signed copy will have to be submitted, as well as recorded at the Registry of Deeds. So that's certainly nothing we oppose.
Okay, all right. Ms. Slaughter, are any of these, have we hit on all these?
So the only items I wanted to touch on were Mr. Champa's comment earlier about if there were any changes to the operations that generate additional traffic or what have you. There is a provision in the minor site plan review under section 3.6.5 in our bylaw that allows for a minor site plan review for any uses that generate additional noise or trips, and that could be something that's handled administratively to start, and if it seems like there's a significant increase, we can refer it back to the planning board to make adjustments to any conditions that are put forth here as necessary. So that was one thing I wanted to button up. The only other thing I wanted to know, just looking through the outstanding comments one more time, so just correcting the dumpster location detail to not be a copy paste, which is perfectly fine. We're not going to cross the bridge of having them look for an easement or any interest from the town to be able to use the town, that corner piece of the property, so just making sure there's no striping in that area. It sounds like for 3 and 4 that you folks are asking to not adhere to TEC's recommendation of putting in the striped crosswalk and asking for a waiver from the walkways to the frontage of the property connecting to those sidewalks. So I just wanted to confirm that that is in fact what we're looking at. Okay.
Yes, correct.
So that would be added to the waivers. Let's see, that the asphalt milling depth detail would be specified on the plans and the construction details. The straw wattle detail will be updated, and that the LTPPP will also be updated, understanding that I already included that, I believe, as, so as condition number 10, and that'll just kind of follow through with the updated version. So the only waiver that we have to add is the one for the walkways, which is 6111D. And if that is a succinct summary, then I think we've got it all.
Right, so for the number 10, though, that also just needs the language about the annual report?
That gets added to the LTPPP, and then once that's updated and Mr. Zwicker takes possession of the property, then that document will be generated in his name. He'll be able to file
Okay.
it, but he just can't do it since he's not the owner just yet.
Okay, all right. All right, with that, I'll open up the
If I may
audience.
for 1 second, sorry. And we just on the proposed condition about the concrete
Oh,
building as
yes,
well.
of course. And so, condition number 2, excluding the concrete outbuilding.
Yes.
Okay.
Thanks.
All right, with that, I'll open up the audience. Anyone in the audience with any questions, comments, or concerns? Seeing none, bring it back to the board. So you guys have seen the proposed conditions, correct?
Yes.
And with the comments this evening, you have no issues with them as they stand? The waivers as they stand with the addition of the ones we covered tonight? Is that correct?
Correct.
That is correct. All right. Ms. Lauder, any reservations for the cleanup?
Nope, it just looks like it's going to be 4 housekeeping items, save for any updates they make for conservation if necessary. And just looking at site plan review, land disturbance permit, and the use special permit.
Okay, so let me just go around the board. Anybody have any further issues?
I just want to come back to the ADA part of so it's number 3, TEC comment number 3. So right now, recommending accessible path for the accessible walkway and accessible ramp are proposed at absolute maximum slopes. I'm trying to understand this. Is there an accessible ramp and they're just saying it's been proposed, or are you asking not to do that?
No, so there's a accessible walkway and ramp from the proposed ADA space going to the side door to the existing dwelling building. What they're saying is ADA is, very strict about slopes and, rise and run and all of that. So we show elevations on the plan that while they meet ADA requirements, what they're requesting is maybe we just tone it down a little. What happens sometimes, construction isn't perfect. And so if you're off an inch, might not seem much to, the normal people, but an inch all of a sudden throws you over the requirements. So that is a change we'll be making to the plans.
Okay, I just wanted to revisit that because we have seen instances where stuff stuff has had to be torn out because it was off by fractions of an inch.
Yep.
So I just wanted to make sure that you understood that.
Very much.
And that being said, Mr. Chairman, I'm pretty much good with tonight, so.
Solzani? Mr. Duffy?
I guess the only question I have is, based on our earlier discussion today, are we good with the sale of mulch, loam, stone?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yep.
so we're going to be calling it that, and that's, okay, that's the only question I have. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, so, and as I pointed out earlier, we have 4 members this evening, so I'll leave it up to you whether or not you want to continue the hearing to our next one, or whether you want us to close it and make a decision.
I feel pretty comfortable if you agree.
We can go to vote.
All right, so then
Make a
I'll
motion to close the public hearing.
have a motion made. Do I have a second?
Second?
Motion made and second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries. All right, so we will start with the waivers. So the waivers are the 6 that were listed on our materials this evening with the addition of, is it 11, did you say 11D?
6111D.
6111D, 11D, which covered the TEC comment 3 and 7 waivers that they requested. So do I have a motion on the waivers as proposed?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the requested waivers for this project.
I have a motion made. Do I have a second?
Second?
Motion made and second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries unanimous. All right, moving on to the site plan review and special permit. Do I have a motion?
Is that 2 different things, or is that the same thing?
No, it's all, I do them together.
Okay, so I'd like to make a motion to approve the site plan review special permit.
All right, and that will include all the conditions as listed on our materials, as well as those discussed tonight to make clarifications, which includes the concrete building and there are others discussed this evening. So that's the motion made. Do I have a second?
Second?
Motion made and second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries, and that leaves us with the land disturbance permit. Do I have a motion on the land disturbance permit?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the land disturbance permit for 1628, 1636 Joshine Street.
I have a motion made. Do I have a second?
Second?
Motion made and second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries unanimous. All right, good luck.
Thanks very
Welcome.
much.
Thank you very much.
All right, that moves us on to
The fun stuff.
agenda item E, which is administrative items continue, which is the zoning bylaw update discussion.
All right, let me just plug in for a second. Look at that. This is the first time we're using this particular technology, so we're very excited it's working. All right, where are my notes? All right, so I'd say over the last year or so, we've had several discussions at this board level talking about different bylaw improvements that we could make that could help business owners, homeowners, and the like. So based on kind of a lot of that recon, including some that I've done with other members of the community, I've put together this brief presentation just to kind of float some ideas for you folks for some potential bylaw changes, as it notes, to promote economic development that we would slate for this upcoming town meeting. Very briefly, what is driving these proposed changes: discussions with property owners, selling or leasing buildings and land in town, interactions with potential businesses who want to locate or expand here. Had literally one of those calls today, so that's going to help feed into this discussion. Meetings with real estate brokers for both property owners and prospective buyers, industry trends, market trends, and then feedback from you folks and other members of the community. First one, we've been talking about for quite some time, and it came on the heels of that like quadruple hit from Dunkin' Donuts, a menu board exemption. So as it stands, the bylaw requires all electronic message board signs to obtain special permits from the planning board. The purpose of the sign bylaw is to protect and enhance the visual enhancement of the town, so we're really trying to make sure that there aren't too many huge electronic message signs. But this current broad definition for electronic message signs applies to all digital boards, including those restaurant menus located within drive-through lanes. The planning board received 7 applications for electronic message signs in 2024, and 4 of them were for menu board conversions. This creates additional steps for existing and potential food establishments who are updating their operations and branding. And as we've discussed at this board level, it really seems to make sense, and having a provision as a part of it that allows for parameters to be set around it. So we kind of landed on a, what did we land on? A 7x12 maximum, which is kind of what we've seen come through with all of the updates that have come so far. And if anybody exceeds that, then they would still have to come to the planning board. Or if it is under minor site plan, under the exempt review by myself and the building commissioner, if we feel like there's a little too much going on, we'll still refer it to the planning board for review. This next one, introducing uses to the Industrial 1, Industrial 2, and the Office Research District. So there are several properties for sale and for lease in the Industrial and Office Research Districts. We hear about some of them all the time. Ames Pond to actually this property here that Mr. Zwicker hopefully purchases and pursues his business expansion on. That one had been on the market for several years. Some niche markets stand out, such as data storage, cold storage warehouses, like the one that we saw for 159 Lorem Street with Sterling Corporation, and others are expanding, and businesses are looking for towns to build their facilities in. The current zoning use table and definitions do not include some of the most marketable uses, which creates uncertainty for potential buyers and leasing agents. All of these uses, the ones that I've proposed here, whether by right, special permit, or what have you, would have the oversight of site plan review. One that came up at our last meeting was modifying the real estate sign requirements. As previously mentioned, the purpose of the sign bylaw is to protect and enhance the visual environment of the town, and real estate signage communicates to potential buyers and lessees which properties are available. So the idea behind this one would be to make the signs that are allowed smaller. So the current bylaw allows for 30 square feet. We'd be reducing it to 16 square feet. And these proposed changes would allow the town to set better expectations for available commercial and industrial space. And as a part of that, I have also included the town manager's designee, which at present time is myself in the planning position, to be able to help with the education and enforcement of this bylaw, because the building commissioner is the zoning enforcement officer, the sign officer, and many other hats. And, you know, this isn't an interest to add more to his plate, but to make sure that we're setting expectations for the commercial market in town, and just adding another layer of authority to be able to help out with that. Next item here, so there are 4 business districts along Main Street. We have the Town Center District, which is the subject of this discussion, mixed-use business, South Village business, and general business. 3 of these districts, which is the mixed-use, South Village, and general, all include properties that front Main Street and are those parcels immediately behind where Main Street parcels are smaller, just to kind of create that cohesion. The Town Center District encroaches beyond this general rule of thumb down a portion of Pleasant Street, and it is the only district along Main that does so. The proposed change would pull back the Town Center District, included in the maps that I gave you folks in your handouts there. These areas would revert back to the R40 single-family residential district, which is pretty much all of the properties that are down that way anyway. And again, this sets market expectations for those areas that are distinctly commercial from those that are characteristically residential. You know, this is a carryover from an old overlay district from the late 2000s, where there was some intention to try to create different pockets for live and work and business neighborhoods, but it's something that in the last 15 years hasn't really materialized, and all of those properties along Pleasant Street that were a part of this have retained their single-family residential use and characteristics. And at present time, these single-family homes are held to business district standards effectively. So for example, they wouldn't be able to put an ADU at their property because it's not a single-family residential district, even though it is that use. They're held to different setbacks that are more tailored toward businesses and just different things like that. So just trying to kind of create a little bit better expectations for our town center district and not burden those folks who aren't really a part of it with the expectations of a commercial district. And last but not least, this one seems maybe a little out of pocket, but swimming pool requirements. So with an increase in swimming pool permit applications, for the building commissioner, safety is top of mind when it comes to managing access, particularly for children. Currently, the building code does not capture all swimming pool enclosure types when it comes to safety requirements, so including requiring fencing, locked gates, things like that. But this is something that other communities such as North Reading have remedied through zoning. And, just from an economic development angle here, pools are often a source of additional liability insurance requirements for homeowners, so including additional safety measures through the town's permitting process may help alleviate that. This is primarily driven by the prevalence of, not so much in Tewksbury yet, there have been a couple that have come through, but the prevalence of those automatic retractable covers for pools. And those can be managed remotely, and currently the building code does not require those types of pools to be fenced in. So in theory, someone accidentally leaves their home and, they're away from home and they say, oh no, I forgot to close my pool. They hit the button remotely. They could be creating a safety hazard, could be trapping somebody in the water, or for that period of time, there's free access to it. And still to come, FEMA flood map update. So we actually got, I haven't been able to update this, we just got our letter of final determination from FEMA, which affirms all of the draft floodplain maps that have been in circulation. So we will have to adopt those maps at town meeting as well, but those are still being drawn up. Unsurprisingly, the floodplain is minorly expanding, it's not retracting, but it's not anything that's necessarily going to create a new designation for somebody. Somebody who's in the floodplain now is still going to be in the floodplain, and they will continue to be so. So it's, incremental increases, but it is something that we do have to maintain in order to be a part of the National Flood Insurance Program. So that'll be fun to see. I want to stop for questions, but I do also want to back up for 1 second to this one. Yes. The proposed uses. So since originally sending this to you folks at the end of December, I have had a couple of conversations with property owners, real estate brokers, and actually a potential developer today who was talking about the uses in the Office Research District being limited compared to what the market is looking at right now. And a use that the person had proposed to me, and I've heard this actually multiple times over the last 2 weeks since kind of making these notes public, was the need for a light industrial definition, a light industrial warehouse. So if we think back to some of the applications that have been letter of the law considered a warehouse, so the electrical distributor, right, on East Street, or the flooring company that came in for Lumber Lane. By our large, broad definition of warehouse, that's their special permit, that's their use. But they could fit into a smaller designation that could either be considered by right through a building permit or through just site plan review. So they're also being called shallow bay warehouses, where it's like no more than 20,000 square feet, and it's meant for these like smaller distributors who aren't using tractor trailers. They're using just box trucks and just vans. So in addition to the definitions that I kind of gave you folks in your packets, that was another one that just seems to be coming up in earnest really the last couple of weeks, and I think that it might be prudent to include something like that, because that seems to be, as we move away from office space, there is a need for warehouse space, but not, Amazon size or Market Basket size even. We're talking about these much smaller distributors, and that seems to be another niche market, like I mentioned, that just isn't readily available, and that could be something that we really get to the forefront of and really attract some potential businesses here. That's my story.
All right. All right, questions or comments? Mr. Lozardi?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Happy to see the menu board stuff come on. I think that's it's a definite improvement and brings us more in line with what you see in other places. And the fact that we had to treat those as signs before was It's unfortunate. I think for the actual, like, the zoning updates, I think that's good to have, like, there's a series of these that seem like they are, low-impact businesses, something like the data center, the electronic storage, the cold storage for things like that. I think those are good. Banquet halls, they seem like they might be something that, you're going to expect a large amount of traffic for, but it also doesn't seem like something that would be outside of the normal site plan review. So I'm okay again, with that being by right, assuming that we would address any traffic concerns there. And then on the town center district, it's all just pulling back, right?
Yeah, so we'd
no
basically be
expansion.
pulling it back. So let me just pull it. So kind of like this, and you'll actually make it bigger. This kind of leg right here,
Yeah.
that would be what we'd be looking to pull back and just revert it back to R40 and make it more in line with the rest of the business districts, which are, like I said, are like 1 or 2 parcels deep, depending on how big the parcel is.
I do think that makes sense, especially like if it's going to keep them from, things like ADUs and stuff like that, like it's an improvement there. So that's all my comments.
All right, Mr. Duffy?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So the area that we're pulling back there, like what does that actually encompass? I'm just trying to, I see it goes down Pleasant Street and then it takes a left. Is that Helvetia?
Yes.
And then cuts across, maybe, I don't know, is that James Street or?
So it has parts of Summer Street and Dewey Street in it, and then Robinson Ave. James Street is further down. But we'd be looking to pull it up Pleasant Street to come back up basically to Town Hall and the annex,
Okay.
and the old fire station parcel.
Okay. I mean, I guess I don't have any major problems with that. I mean, I think it's good that we take a look at this stuff periodically, and so that I guess I don't have any very strong feelings over. But I think it's an absolutely fantastic idea to be looking at the zoning, with an eye towards bringing in a potential tenant or potential building owner and so on and so forth, that's more in tune with what the market is requiring today. And that's, I mean, there are places that are putting up boxes, big warehouses, just in hopes of getting some e-commerce. So I think that's a very progressive and forward-looking idea. So thank you for that. And then my one other point that I would like to make on the signs is, and I don't mean to single out the library, and this could probably, carry over to other electronic signboards, is the lighting. We ask them to dim, we ask them to turn them off when they're not open, between 12 and 6, and so on and so forth, and I don't see any of that happening. And I realize that, we don't have the sign police in town, but there's one particular sign that we did here just a couple of years ago where the proponent pretty much promised us that they were going to dim or turn the sign off, and it's the one at the library. Mm-hmm. Well, it's lit up like a Christmas tree, 24/7, and that in and of itself, it's not. There are many, many signs around town that are like that. But I happened to notice the other day on a drive-by that not only does it blind you on the way by, but it completely takes away from the ambiance of the 9/11 memorial there. And I think that that's something that needs to be addressed.
Okay.
If you don't mind.
Sure.
Thank you. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Mr. Champa?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So the specific things you put for the use districts here, the battery energy storage systems, I'm just thinking, we did have some issues with the Thermo Fisher site where they wanted to put the solar canopy on, and they had a number of issues with access and fire apparatus and things like that related to the battery storage. I feel like most of these are pretty much okay, but I just feel like battery energy storage in particular deserves a lot of scrutiny. Would this remove them from this process, or just, it would just create areas that are that are more open to that?
Sure. So the idea with the battery energy storage systems, they want to be located near the grid, because the idea is they're not operating with solar. They are standalone facilities that take power off the grid at off-peak times and reintroduce it at high demand times. So the majority of these, since we do have a lot of national grid infrastructure in town, a lot of these sites are in the office research and industrial districts. And there's some discussion at the state level with building commissioners that, like solar, the battery energy storage systems could be something that's going to become a protected use. So let's cite it. Let's cite it where it makes sense. And to the safety and the operations of these battery energy storage systems, I will say there's been a couple of proactive companies who have already come and met with the fire department. They are going to be required to give training and what have you when they tour existing facilities. And they really, some of them, the ones that take a lot of care with what they're doing, are really at the forefront. They're very proactive, and they are interested in educating and partnering with communities. There is currently a separate DPU process that they can go through, but by adding it to our use table in specific districts, we are signaling to those companies that, yes, we are open to this, and this isn't something we have to allow by right. We can make it a special permit, and that's kind of the case with all of these is, there's some that I would, in my opinion, I think would be served better by a by right use, but if you wanted to make all of them special permit, that's fine too. It's just something that we're saying, yes, we welcome this kind of business, and we want to talk to you about it. By not having these types of uses, including the battery energy storage systems called out, it not only creates uncertainty for the folks that would be considering looking at some of the properties in town, but some of them may not even pick up the phone. I hope they do, but if they don't see it expressly in our zoning bylaw, they're like, oh, they're not into it, next, and they just move on. So back to your original comment about the battery energy storage, the fire code and the building code are updated to, or either have been updated or the updates take effect shortly to accommodate the necessary reviews for these things. And, anybody wanting to do one could be a special permit at minimum or site plan review at a minimum and special permit if you guys wanted that.
Okay, that's great. And again, certainly, I think by having it listed as a use, obviously that is much more welcoming than not having it listed. And I'm sure there will be many, many uses that are invented over the next, however many decades, and we'll be doing this. Well, maybe Nick will be doing it. I don't know if I'll be around, but. And then, question about the swimming pool. I don't know if our current zoning covers for this, but those Intech pools, which have just the inflatable ring, and I'm not sure about the height of those, but I don't think they're 4 feet. Where do those fall into this?
Those kind of fall in kind of an in-between where, folks don't always get building permits for those because they put them up for a couple of months and then they take them right down. So, in a perfect world, everybody would be getting those permitted and they would be putting up the safety measures for them, but these are kind of gearing more towards the permanent, really the in-ground pools for the most part, because those are in the above-ground pools. I have asked the building commissioner to take a closer look at this to see what are the most important pieces of it, because this is language that we aggregated from other communities and who have had successful administration of their bylaws, including this language for pools. So it's not all it's not an all or nothing. The idea really is to make sure that anybody who can't just check a box with the retractable cover and say, oh, no fences, no gates, that kind of thing. So we'll take a closer look at what kind of the super necessary language is in his professional opinion and kind of review it with you folks. But the idea here is not to be, overly difficult or arduous or make things too hard for people, but just trying to add a layer of safety.
Okay, that's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. All right, so I have no issue with the menu board, on the new, well, I guess it's 5, right? Because the light industrial makes it 5. So I have no problem with adding all 5. Just generically, my suggestion is site plan for the battery one,
Yep.
as right for the data storage, as right for the cold storage, site plan for the banquet, and I'm not sure about the light industrial. Like, I kind of want to make things simpler, but I don't, like,
Even
I don't know
site
what the
plan
rules
review.
are, so I mean, if we're getting them from someplace, that if somebody's already using them, then and they're doing it as by right, I don't have a problem with that,
Yeah.
because it moves things along without us having to slow everything down. Because even site plan, even though it's a lot lower, it still falls under our, we meet every 2 weeks, and, it's
Right.
one of those things that, somebody given the option is going to move along to someone who doesn't.
Right, so I think that a good way to look at this is, if it's going to be new construction, it's site plan review and land disturbance permit all the way, right? Like, they're going to be building something new, that's an automatic. But the uses, battery energy storage, they're going to have to build something. They're coming for site plan review anyway. It's going to be new structures, so they're never going to be able to, they're never going to be able to walk in and just say, oh, building permit, yes. Data storage center, they could, in theory, occupy a empty building and just start moving their equipment in. Cold storage, same thing. Because, again, thinking about it in context, it just means that Sterling Corporation, who spent 20 minutes here, that just takes away a step for them. And if it's a use that everybody's comfortable with, then if they're building something new, we'll capture them. If not, building and fire codes, and you're on your merry way. The banquet facility, as Mr. Champa noted, I think site plan review probably should be a part of that, just considering if you're introducing traffic to an area that doesn't ordinarily see it, even if they aren't building new. And then the light storage, I think the intention there is to infill a lot of the empty spaces that are out there. So the person that I spoke to today said that there's somebody who has built a number of warehouses in this town and in others, and the biggest request that they're getting is to subdivide the larger warehouses into these smaller uses. Now, for a warehouse that's already built and has that special permit, then who cares? But a building that has a lot of space that they're looking to convert to one of these smaller scale warehouses, that could be site plan review, or it could be by right. But I think having it there is going to be better than not having it there, but I could kind of see it going either way, by site plan or special permit.
I mean, I'm just trying to think, if it's a bigger building that's being cut into smaller pieces, then we've already dealt with it once.
Right.
Somewhere along the line.
Yeah, this would be for a building that doesn't have a warehouse use attached to it, that they're revisiting to be
So
able to
that I
do
could see as a site plan, whereas I could see if you're just carving up a building we've already dealt with.
Right,
We already know that there's potentially would have just been a bigger building
Right.
doing business there. We're just cutting it into smaller slices. Then
Yep.
what do we really, by right, barring an issue?
Mm-hmm.
It just seems like it could move things along for something we've already sat down with.
yeah. So I guess, kind of looking at it in a different context, that electrical distributor and the flooring company that we saw last year, those are the scale businesses that I think would be the intention to hit this kind of use. If you look at that now, is that a use that you guys would want to see as a special permit again, or would you be comfortable with them moving forward with a building permit? They're moving into existing space and just doing something a little bit different.
That's what I'm saying. I feel like I would be, only because it means they're moving into someplace we've already dealt with.
Right.
We've already discussed it. We've already dealt with, does it fit, and all that stuff. When we bring them back in here for that stuff, it's slowing down their process for what, really? Like,
Right.
what are we really doing while they're here? You know what I mean? The building already exists. They're already doing something. We're just saying, okay,
You cut it
yes,
that
you
way.
can do that.
Yeah.
And, then we got to go through 2 weeks process, or a month just to do what otherwise, just happened.
Okay.
Obviously, the zoning map is fine with me because I think it makes sense. Swimming pool, not an issue for me. And then the only other one is it's the real estate signs that are my sort of thing. The not active listing, like what does that mean? Because I see some of these, the signs are permanent. like, they seem to always be there, and they're always saying they're leasing, but is it because they're getting ready for whoever's going to take over for when it opens up the next time, or is there actually an empty space
Right.
that they're trying to fill? Because, sure, you might be trying to get people to call, oh, when does one of these open up? Well, that's not, I mean, that's you're just calling because, you know what I mean? Like, I don't feel like that's the same
Yeah.
thing as, you know, I don't want empty space, so I want you to be able to, you know,
Right.
to get empty space dealt with. But some of these signs, they don't ever seem to leave. And,
Right.
you know, some of them are more onerous than the signs that are advertising the businesses there, you know, and in terms
Yeah.
of what's on them. It's like, real estate agency, oh, by the way, we're leasing
Right.
something here. You know what I mean? Like, that's,
Would better, I think maybe a better way to phrase that would be, if a temporary real estate sign is installed on a property which does not have a vacancy, maybe that's a better way to, that's a less awkward way to say it.
yeah, like I said, I'm just trying to get these things to, like, you know, not exist in, you know, in permanence, you know what I mean? And that they're actually there to get the job done that they're doing, and it's just not an opportunity for some real estate company to be doing advertising somewhere,
Yep.
you know, when they're not really actively doing anything there. It's just you're constantly driving by a sign that says, you know, real estate's our us, constantly. And then there's somewhere in there, it's like, space open, please, you know, and like somewhere at the bottom, because there really isn't any space open.
Right.
But there might be someday, but hey, we got to keep the sign here,
Sure.
you know, forever. So. All right, that's it for me. Anything else?
I guess sort of it comes down to the same thing, issue that I have with some of the illuminated signs is, you know, what's going to be the process for, you know, what's going to be the remedy? And who does that fall on?
Well, to help out my good friend, the building commissioner, I would probably take that lead, because he has many other things to do. It would have to be taking an inventory of all the electronic message signs and just start, you know, putting, you know, foot to pavement, so to
I mean,
speak.
just, maybe some people just need a reminder or
Yeah.
whatever, you know, and a letter or something along those lines. But, I mean, we were straight out promised by our own town here that that was going to be,
Yeah.
the light was, that because I remember specifically asking the sign guy if the signs were dimmable. Oh, yeah. So they may be dimmable, but they're not
Haven't
dimmable.
been dimmed yet.
I think the one at the senior center got me the other day. It
Same.
flipped to a white background, and it was like a drizzly, rainy day, and it just lit my entire car up.
Yeah.
All right, I'll get to them. Actually, one last question. So back to the use table for a second. We do have research and development listed, and it's by right in our industrial districts, but it's a special permit in the office research district, which feels antithetical. Would there be any opposition to changing that to a by right with site plan review?
Not for me.
Okay,
No,
cool.
it sounds fine.
Thank you.
I guess one other point I would like to maybe just talk about is the, you know, the battery storage issue. I mean, that is obviously a thing that's here to stay for eternity, or at least for the foreseeable future. But, you know, I think a lot of buildings have had, you know, UPS systems and that type of thing for many, many years. So that was in the event that the power went out. It was sort of a backup power system. So based on our conversation, this battery backup system is designed to store energy during peak electric hours and then use the electricity
Correct.
during the peak.
Correct.
Yeah, so, or vice versa, to store it during off-peak and then use it during peak hours, which certainly makes a lot of sense, and it certainly makes economic sense, I would say, for a potential tenant. So I think as long as, you know, I think the building code and the fire codes and so on and so forth, if they're not completely caught up already on that stuff, they're right
nearly
there.
there, yeah.
Yeah. So,
And our fire chief, you know, had multiple conversations with him as the topic keeps coming up. And our building department and fire department work very closely together, and they're in lockstep when it comes to making sure that these are managed properly.
Nice, okay.
Yeah, I mean, all I'd say is if there's some relatively close-by communities that are already have already dealt with this, and they're getting a benefit out, because I think that makes it a little easier, too, to explain to people, to say, wait, they've already had businesses come in, it's helped their tax base, we just are we're missing the opportunity here, that's why we want to do this. It's not, we're trying to trick you into, something's coming in, you're going to be all angry about, or whatever.
Yep.
But also then making sure that whatever we're doing, whether it's by right, whether it's site plan, or, special permit, also is consistent with neighbors. You know what I mean? Because I want us to be as attractive, if not more attractive, not less attractive, for these things, if they're not, none of them are really a problem, so they're not, not on their face a problem.
Yeah.
We're not asking to we'd like to put a dump, you know what I mean? This is
Right.
This is something that, shouldn't really be an issue unless there's a special circumstance. But-
And on that note too, I mean, the work from home thing over the last few years, has opened up an awful lot of office space in our region and probably around the country. And a lot of that is already being converted to R&D. In Jonathan's world and some of what I see in some of the high-rise in Boston, there's just nothing else to do with it. And I think it's a good conversion,
Those will have good personal property tax implications as well.
All right, very good. All right, so with that, correspondence, we didn't have any, so we're all set with that. Other business not known at the time of the posting of the agenda. Is it?
Just one small item, can't be helped, but as I was coming here this weekend to pick up my packet, a lot of the site fencing, we have the construction going on at the corner of Main Street and Pleasant. A lot of that fencing and whatnot seems to be coming apart and being in a little bit of disrepair. And obviously, that's meant to keep the goings-on of construction,
Inside.
without the public seeing, something that looks like it's in disarray. So I don't know if we could just maybe send a notice and just ask them to sort of reinstall or bring back into original condition all of the site mitigation that they originally installed when they started, and just get that back so that it's a little less of an eyesore. I know we take a lot of pride in our town center district. We're always trying to bring more and more people in here, so we want them to have a good experience when they pass through.
Sure.
good point.
Okay, so then the only other thing is, as we did not have to continue anything, I will entertain a motion to cancel our January 27th meeting and make the February 10th our next meeting.
So moved.
A motion made, do I have a second?
Second.
Motion made, second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All right, so that takes care of that. And with no other business, I will take a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
I have a motion made, do I have a second?
Second.
Motion made and second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed, motion carries. We'll see you on February 10th.